Good afternoon, and thank you so much for joining us for this week's Thursday with AARP Wisconsin. I am Amber Miller, your host for the streaming show, but also the Associate State Director of Community Outreach, and thank you again for joining us. Before we get started with our guest, please always know you can check out the AARP Wisconsin website for any upcoming virtual events, information about the COVID vaccine, and other valuable information. And that you could check out at any time. Also remember the AARP Friendly Voice initiative that launched last year. This is where you could put a request in for one of our trained volunteers to give you a call, whether that's weekly, daily, or monthly, just to hear a friendly voice on the other end. You could put a request in by visiting the website below or the phone number, and also your loved one can request this on your behalf, which the phone number is below. Please remember this is no cost. You do not need to be a member of AARP, and it is open to all ages. And we're always looking for fabulous volunteers. Our volunteers help us so much within the community on virtual events right now. If you're looking for virtual volunteer opportunities, you could check out the website below, and we will connect with you as soon as we get your request. We'd love for you to be on board with our AARP family. If you do not know this week is National Entrepreneurship Week. And as we know, entrepreneurs are the backbone of our community. They are our locally owned businesses and shops. And when we think about COVID right now, we always think about what are small business owners doing to ensure that they are bouncing back from this epidemic. So we are excited to have our two guests here with us today to talk about entrepreneurship in Wisconsin. We have Nora Schmidt. She is the Executive Director of Starting Block in Madison. And we also have Nick O'Brien, who is the Director of Innovation and Engagement with the Sheboygan County Economic Development Corporation, also known as SCEDC, another acronym. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Amber.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Thanks.
Great, thank you. And once again, if you are watching us live, we will be taking questions throughout the show. You can post them below if you are joining us on Facebook.com or YouTube, and we will take them shortly. So great to have you both. Of course, this is National Entrepreneurship Week. You guys are definitely experts within that topic. So between the two of you, you have worked throughout most of Wisconsin. Can you each share a little bit about your experience working with entrepreneurs? And Nora, we'll start with you first.
Sure. So I have worked with entrepreneurs for, 7 or 8 years now. And I've worked in rural economic development and community development, and also in more urban areas. And I've found both to be incredibly rewarding. There is nothing better than helping entrepreneurs find solutions to problems that they're having and helping to lift them up and get them to their desired result. So while it seems like there would be a lot of differences between rural and urban environments, there are actually more similarities and more commonalities. One of the things that I'm particularly passionate about is eliminating any barriers to entry for startups, entrepreneurs, small businesses. And that can involve assistance with financing, help with education, sometimes simple things like how to form an LLC, how to market yourself, how to do branding, how to open that first business checking account, and then also how to figure out ways to make sure that small businesses have access to benefits, vision and dental insurance, health insurance, all of those things.
Great. Thank you so much, Nora. It sounds like you have extensive experience. So I'll be looking forward to asking you more questions. And Nick, same question to you. You've been around the state. If you could just share a little bit about your experience with the entrepreneurs.
Yeah, I'm in Sheboygan now, and this is the fourth community in the state of Wisconsin in the last 6 years that I've worked with entrepreneurs, some indirectly, some more directly, like in my current role. I've done that through organizations like the Chamber. I've done it through organizations like I'm with right now with an economic development corporation. I've also done it through my own kind of private business consultancy realm and as a volunteer as well. So much coming at the kind of the space of entrepreneurship from a few different perspectives and angles, from whether it be resource providers or just being like an interested supporter and advocate for entrepreneurs. And in my experience, or at least, I kind of had a face when you said expert, because I don't like to be really called an expert in anything. But one thing that I am passionate about, and Nora shared hers, and I think this is an element of that, is really building community around entrepreneurship. And I feel that in most of the areas that I've worked in, there have been varying levels of culture surrounding entrepreneurship, and even different kind of sections within entrepreneurship, whether it be, scalable startup businesses, Main Street level businesses, small businesses, or even corporations. Those all started as small businesses at some point. And so there's varying levels of culture that exist around entrepreneurship as a whole. And then there are stronger cultures within that culture around particular kind of channels of entrepreneurship in a community.
And Nora, what have you seen as like the biggest aha moment or the biggest difference when you were working more with like, an entrepreneur more like in a bigger city compared to a smaller city? What would you say is the biggest difference?
I don't know. That's a really challenging element because so many things are similar. They're just on different levels and different scales. So financing is always a big thing. How do you start that business idea? But grassroots style economic development, and I know this is something Nick is incredibly familiar with also, is incredibly effective whether you're in a rural environment or in a larger city. So I think startup capital is always a huge thing for businesses. And, obviously in larger, more urban areas, rent is higher. There are costs that are a little bit different that are higher, but everything is relative compared to, which environment you're in. So while the cost of living may be a little bit lower in, Vernon County or Richland County, those startups, entrepreneurs, and small businesses have a lot of the same needs financially that you would find in Madison or Dane County.
And Nick, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, finance, businesses need money. So kind of Nora touched on that. I would also just say that entrepreneurs are the type of person typically that they have an idea and they're very proud about the fact that they have this idea. They're proud about the work that they're putting into it, the amount of time and resources they're putting into it. And it doesn't leave a lot of room for like social connectivity. And I think that, I'll use a quote here from Yogi Berra, that baseball is like, what is it? What's the quote? Something about 90% physical and 50% mental or whatever, which obviously doesn't add up to 100%. I feel the same way about entrepreneurship. Is like there are technical services and resources that entrepreneurs need, but really the culture, the community of support around that entrepreneur, even just amongst entrepreneurs themselves, having kind of peer networks to lean on is something that is critically important, and I think too often overlooked as an important piece of the kind of the entrepreneurship ecosystem.
And Nick, it's interesting you say that, because I came from, before AARP, a similar background. And the one thing that entrepreneurs would always say is sometimes the lack of support they're getting, and that could be from family or friends. They might say, "Ooh, it's maybe not time to start your business." And that's why, networking with other entrepreneurs or connecting with people is so important, so you can get that support that a lot of entrepreneurs need. So research has shown that the average age of an entrepreneur that's starting a business, a founder, is about 47 years old, which of course there must be a lot of small business owners, entrepreneurs out there over the age of 50. What has been your experience working with 50 plus entrepreneurs in Wisconsin? And Nora, I'll start with you.
So to be perfectly honest, I haven't worked with a lot of folks over the age of 50 who are entrepreneurs. I think that it is, although statistically you will see, just like you stated, that there are many people average age of 47 over the age of 50 who are starting businesses. Many of those folks have not been in age bracket that I've been servicing. And I think there's some real opportunities to start to reach out to those people and have programming, networking events, resources that appeal to their age category and also appeal to people that they might serve with their businesses.
And Nick, same question to you.
Yeah, and I may sound like a broken record here with kind of focusing on the community and kind of peer-to-peer support, but I think I have had some experience working with with founders or entrepreneurs who are over the age of 50, basically also at varying levels. I've worked with people who are working on a product that could potentially scale and come into some large amounts of funding, as well as business owners that are on kind of that Main Street level. And it seems as though obviously startup entrepreneurship right now is dare I say the sexy section of entrepreneurship. And so you're not necessarily seeing a lot of entrepreneurs over the age of 50 in those, because there is a lot of networking. There's just a lot of social interactivity. And I think there may be an element of, I don't want to say intimidation, but somebody who's 55 and has an idea, maybe doesn't feel like 20 or 30 something year olds who are also high energy and all of that. So if I have a message for entrepreneurs out there, it doesn't matter what type of business you're trying to start. And if you're older, actually being in those environments with 20 and 30 something year olds is going to rise your level of energy, and you're going to start to kind of you can actually share your experiences, your wisdom, just in life in general, not necessarily in business, with the individuals who are kind of doing the same thing. I think it's all about stage of life versus age in life. And so thinking through that perspective is kind of always some advice that I give to entrepreneurs that are, older than what you normally see, I suppose.
And Nick, I love that you mention about kind of the seasoned worker or entrepreneur compared to maybe a younger, I don't like to use younger or older, but for the sake of the conversation, because a lot of 50 and older entrepreneurs, so maybe they're looking to start their business because they're underemployed, they're unemployed, or maybe they're just looking for a change on how much experience they can bring to the table as an entrepreneur versus maybe somebody who's on the younger spectrum could bring a totally different skill set to the table, whether it's like social media or marketing or podcasting. So Nick, do you have any additional comments about that?
Yeah, honestly, I spend a lot of time thinking about why an entrepreneur started a business. And I think there's a strong distinction when you look at someone's age. The entrepreneurs that I've worked with that are, kind of above 50 years old, their reason or their motivation for starting that business, sometimes it tends to be a lot more compelling. It's something, it's a problem that they're trying to solve with this business that they've experienced firsthand. Maybe I'm working with an entrepreneur in Sheboygan where, he has a medical device that he created this specifically because a family member of his had an issue with obtaining this type of device, and that's kind of empowered him to go on that route. So obviously with entrepreneurship, it's hard work. It takes a lot of time and energy, and educating entrepreneurs from the beginning of look, you got to really care about this problem that you're solving or this business that you're running, because it's going to get tough. And I see that level of commitment, honestly, it varies, but I see a strong level. That's something that I see always in all entrepreneurs that I've worked with that are above the age of 50. They have a really strong commitment to the problem that they're trying to solve because of the length of time that maybe they've been exposed to it.
And Nora, I know you mentioned with Starting Block in Madison, it's kind of a younger demographic of entrepreneur. How would you see maybe a 50 plus entrepreneur and the younger entrepreneur working together? What are your thoughts?
Well, I think one of the things that we're really focusing on at Starting Block right now is changing the definition of who is an entrepreneur. What does that look like? And who fits in that space? And the answer is that it's not an exclusive club. It's not available only to certain people in certain age ranges or who dress a certain way. It is open to everyone. And so that's why we're working on different ways, different programming to make sure that all people feel comfortable and welcome in the space, and that we can provide services and mentorship and connections for them that are valuable so that they can live their dreams and take their ideas to the next level. And that's whether you're 16 years old or 88 years old, you're welcome at Starting Block.
And Nora, so when we think of small business, it is defined in different ways. When I think of small business, I think of, locally, independently owned, 50 or less employees. So if we were to kind of use that framework, so how do you think that small businesses bring value to the whole ecosystem of a community? I know, usually once a year on Small Business Saturday, people are like, shop local, but it's like it needs to be kind of a year-round thing, not just let's pick one day a year. So if you could talk a little bit about, how do small businesses bring value to the community?
Well, small businesses bring value because they bring something that's much more interesting than what you can find, in a big box environment. They're less generic. There's better customer service. There's better contribution to the community in general. Mm-hmm. So, small businesses are more enjoyable to shop. They're just more interesting on every level. And so COVID has presented a lot of problems for small businesses, but I think people are conscious about the need to support small businesses to get them through a difficult time. And small businesses are starting to reach out to tech companies, to startups, to try to figure out ways to pivot their services and work together to provide solutions for the new world that we live in. So I think while COVID-19 has presented tremendous challenges in economic development, it's also been a time where small businesses and entrepreneurs are coming together to solve problems and come up with creative solutions and new ways of doing things. So as bizarre as it sounds, some really incredible work and partnership is coming out of some of those challenges. And that's why small businesses will continue to thrive and be supported, and startups and entrepreneurs will continue to come up with fantastic ideas and take us into the future.
And Nick, same question to you. What do you see as small businesses bringing value to the community?
Yeah, well, just kind of dovetailing off of what Nora is saying, by definition, they're smaller. There are less things, there are less people to kind of I use the boat analogy here. Like, in a time like COVID, a small business is more like a jet ski versus like a large corporation being like trying to turn around a barge. There's a nimbleness with small businesses that allows it to be more effective in responding to a community's needs as well. And then you go into, small businesses, especially if they're locally owned. I think it's like 87 cents of every dollar that's spent, or from a consumer standpoint, stays in that community versus what the numbers are, which I don't know off the top of my head for like a larger corporation. And then I just do think too, like going back to the culture thing, the stronger the small business community is in any community, the stronger the entrepreneurship culture is going to be throughout at any level, really. And a number of ways that obviously I think we're going to get to here that people can contribute to that, to small businesses like economic success, but also just like the cultural success of the community as well. So maybe teed up your next question.
Great. And actually, before we get to that question, we do have a comment from one of our friends, Miss Amy Peach, who we all know. Great conversation, Amber, Nora, Nick, thank you. Hashtag the National Entrepreneurship Week. So thank you so much, Amy. And actually, before we get to the question, this is actually a really good segue. So AARP has an initiative called Work for Yourself at 50 Plus. So if you're a viewer or if you know somebody over the age of 50 who is looking to start a business or maybe even get resources to expand their business, we have all those resources available on the AARP national website. There's a toolkit, articles, information, and then Amy Peach, who is with a local community college here in Wisconsin, is actually one of our grantees for the Work for Yourself at 50 Plus initiative. So there's online workshops that you can take free of cost, and that can also be found on the AARP Wisconsin website. So thank you so much, Amy. We appreciate you joining in the conversation. So Nick, so we talked about, the ecosystem, and, people right now are thinking about, how they shop local as much as they can. And especially with COVID, I do agree with Nora that I think some businesses have gotten so creative, from like drive-through Bloody Mary kits, which I can say I definitely supported, to retail shops, to curbside delivery, to I can get my cat food from the local pet store now delivered. I mean, it's amazing. So what are some ways that our viewers or our community members can really support local small businesses during COVID? And Nick, I'll start with you.
Yeah, that's a great question. And obviously, small businesses have ramped up their digital presence because of COVID. We've got a program now at the SEDC. It's a small business resiliency grant program that we're awarding small businesses with money that they would need to up their SEO, services, to up their, if they need a Shopify kind of situation, so they can go and find a local vendor to get that service, and we will, provide 50% of the funds needed to apply that service. And so digital marketing is a big thing right now, but we often forget that the way that we as humans as we as consumers are most drawn to purchase from a local business really has more to do with who told you to do so, or who recommended that. And so I put a lot of attention on peer-to-peer influence, peer-to-peer sharing of the small businesses that you frequent, that you support. I would strongly encourage everyone to make it a practice of their own to just once a week at the minimum, reach out to somebody and say, hey, have you checked out this place? I just went there last week, because that's going to go a long way, and it's not going to cost the business any money at all to put that message in front of that person. And just, so I'll just say advocate and share the support as much as you can for the businesses that you frequent, and then listen when other people are recommending that you try other people's businesses as well. I think that's the most effective and organic way and cost effective from the business perspective to share the message of how to support the business.
And Nora, same question to you. What are your thoughts on ways that we can better support small businesses during COVID?
Yep. So what Nick just said is really important. Social media sharing, being an advocate. If you're an influencer on social media in any way, shape, or form, your voice is very important. Advocate for those that need help or maybe aren't very good at doing it themselves. I would also say, make sure you're conscious about where you're spending your dollars. Pay attention. Make sure that you're shopping locally. It is important. Make sure that you're donating to causes that are truly putting money in the hands of entrepreneurs, small businesses, and startups. Do some research and make sure that those funds are actually being used appropriately. Figure out ways to, if you're an expert in something, if you're really great at marketing or website building or graphic design, figure out ways to become a mentor. Connect with different entities like, Nick's economic development stuff, contact some Main Street entities, contact startup ecosystems like Starting Block, and, let us know that you have a special service that you'd like to share and you'd like to donate your time to give back. And then most importantly, I think check in with people and make sure that they're doing okay. I think mental health is something that people don't like to talk about very much, but it's a really important piece of all of this. We're all working just a little bit harder and lifting just a little bit more. I, for one, have been in Zoom meetings since 7 a.m. this morning. So, we've all been there. So reach out to the people in your networks and make sure that they're doing okay. And also try to advocate for chambers and Main Streets and economic development organizations on the state level. Yeah. It's really important to let legislators and other folks know that financing and opportunity and grants and other things are really important for small businesses, and also for Main Streets and chambers who are suffering due to the inability to have events So
Mhm.
reach out to people, be as generous as you can with your dollars, be smart about that generosity, and volunteer your services.
Absolutely. And another thing that I've noticed too on social media, and this was something from a couple years back, and I feel like it's coming back, is cash mob. So, getting a group of friends to dedicate maybe, Friday night, separately or together if you socially distance, supporting, your local restaurant. And if you can get 20 friends to, purchase from there. So cash mobs are another way. But I love giving back in a way that isn't just monetary, but the volunteerism. Yeah, I totally agree. If you have a strength that maybe you could give to local entrepreneurs, I think is great. So Nora and Nick, our time came up really fast. I could talk about entrepreneurship for hours and hours and hours, but the one thing that I hope our viewers got from today's show is that there are resources out there for entrepreneurs over the age of 50, or if you know somebody who's even under the age of 50, there's resources, there's support, definitely giving back and supporting local businesses, check in on people. Mental health is really big right now, especially during COVID. So I want to thank you, Nick and Nora, so much for joining me today and our viewers.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Amber. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And then, of course, before we leave today's show, I would love to point out that we have some upcoming events, and we will be popping that up momentarily, that if you're interested in. So we have some Motown Magic. We have a home fit workshop if you're looking for inexpensive or free ways to stay in your home longer. Join Darren and I, who's our producer, on the 23rd. We also have a personal money management, fraud, and scams series for our healthy lifestyle that is launching next week. And then Movies for Grown-Ups, The Amazing Grace. You could check below at the website to register or call that 1-877 number. Also, Small Dollar Big Impact. We launched this last year. It's small grants for really cool, innovative, creative ideas. The next application for this Small Dollar Big Impact grant is due March 17th. So if you're an organization, a nonprofit, a group of people who have a really great idea that you want to start or implement for less than $1,000, we definitely encourage you to submit your application below. On next week's show, we are very excited to talk to two people who will be talking to us about Val Phillips, a woman of first. If you know Val Phillips, she was a very prominent, well-known first African-American judge now out of the Milwaukee area, but statewide. So we're going to be talking a little bit about the effort that they are doing to bring a statue to life for all she did in her amazing career. So I want to thank everybody for joining us today. Please feel free to share this video on your social media or tag your family or friend if this information could be of value to them. We want to thank you again, and we will see you next Thursday. In the meantime, be safe.